Hey Canucks fans, welcome to Clay's Canucks commentary for Tuesday, October the 9th. I'm Clay Emo at Canuck Clay on Twitter. I'm at Clayton Emo on Instagram, and this is my Canucks take, all in one take. It's game day. Tonight the Canucks play game number 3. Seems like there's been big gaps between their games, but I guess not too bad. 2 nights off as opposed to maybe the traditional one night off, or what we like as Canucks fans is one night off. But yeah, they went Wednesday, Saturday, and now Tuesday. And they're playing in Raleigh against the Carolina Hurricanes. It's game number 3 of the season, game number 2 of their 6-game road trip. We know that the Canucks are obviously 1-1 after splitting their opening series with the Calgary Flames. Some lineup changes we got to talk about right away. Significant ones, actually, when you think about it. 1 forward and 1 D swap. So we have Tyler Motte coming out, and that means Tim Schaller makes his season debut up front. And we have Michael Del Zotto sitting out, and Ben Hutton coming in to make his first appearance of the season. So let's talk about both of these changes really quickly and what it could mean for the Canucks. Up front, we already knew that there was going to be some changes actually based on the practice lines yesterday. We had Sven Barchi and Brendan Leipzig swapping. So now the top line looks like Bo Horvat with Brock Besser and Brendan Leipzig on their left wing. Second line remains intact, and why wouldn't it? That's Pettersson between Eriksson and Goldobin. The third line now is Brandon Sutter, Jake Virtanen, and Sven Barchi. And the fourth line with this change we just talked about is now Jay Beagle with Tim Schaller and Marcus Granlund. So, of course, sitting out, as I mentioned, Tyler Motte for the first time this season, and, of course, Antoine Roussel, who's almost back. We'll get to that in a second. So, with Schaller coming in, he signed that 2-year free agent deal on July 1st. I'm sure he's itching to get in. Didn't really impress in the preseason. Tyler Motte has played well in the preseason in the first couple games, so I don't read too much into it, other than making sure that Schaller doesn't sit too long and making sure that he gets into a groove and that he gets into the rotation of the lineup. So someone that just sit, you usually looking at either Motte or Granlund, so this time it is indeed Tyler Motte. So we'll see how Tim Schaller does up front in a fourth line role. On the back end, I think that's more significant because Michael Del Zotto did not miss a single game last season. He played all 82 games. In fact, I think he was the only Canuck, except maybe one of the Sedins, I'm not sure. But regardless, Del Zotto was the only D-man who played all 82 games last season, and already we're in game number 3, and he's a healthy scratch. He hasn't played absolutely poorly, but I think it's the same thing as up front. They want to make sure that Ben Hutton's not sitting too long, especially after Hutton had a pretty darn good preseason. So our defense pairs look like this: Tanev and Edler, Pouliot, Gudbranson, and Hutton and Stetcher. And I kind of joked around yesterday that whoever is skating with Alex Biega, in practice is usually going to be the healthy scratch, and that came to be true here. And that's no offense to Biega, but I think we all agree that Biega, and it's shown that he's the 8th defenseman. So whoever's paired with him in practice, usually that's the extra pair that will be sitting out. One interesting thing to note to look at is when Roussel comes back, which could be any time, maybe as early as the next couple games or so. That means someone has to go down. And so I asked you, Canucks fans, who do you think that would be? Will that be a Motte? Will that be a Granlund? Or will that be a Biega? I think those are the 3 choices. I would send Biega down and go with the 7D and the 14 forwards, so it gives you a little bit more variety up front. But who knows what the Canucks do. I don't see them sending Tyler Motte down when they could have done that at the end of the preseason. So really, I guess it goes down to Granlund or Biega, and I would send Biega down because I do like Granlund's versatility. So tell me about that. Who do you think is going to go down when Roussel gets in the lineup? And tell me what you think about these lineup changes. Not only the Barchi for Leipzig swap up front, but also Schaller in for Tyler Motte, and of course Ben Hutton in for Michael Del Zotto. One other thing I want to talk about, because I love talking about Elias Pettersson, because he's obviously lit the league on fire. 5 points in his first 2 games. I've been on other YouTube channels talking about him, and it's just an exciting story for the Canucks, especially as some other members of the team are a bit slower to get going. I was at my brother's place for Thanksgiving Monday dinner, as we usually do, and my brother Jason is a huge Canucks fan, and he's very smart. He's just as smart as me, whether you call that smart or not. He's just as knowledgeable as me. He understands analytics. He understands the game. He's just not as outspoken, or maybe we'll put it this way, he's more humble than I am. And he's also the musical genius behind some, not all, but a lot of my Canucks songs. He does a lot of great instrumental tracks. Once in a while, I bounce lyrics off of him, and he's helped me with the most recent Sedin song we done, and a couple of the other ones. Anything that's basically highly produced and not me sitting in my piano in my living room, that's my brother Jason's work. Anyway, we had a great chat about Pettersson last night, over dinner, before dinner, after dinner. I'm sure it made the rest of our family thrilled them. But Jason made a really good point. He thinks that all these worries about Pettersson adjusting to the bigger ice service were moot because he actually thinks the smaller ice surface, the North American size as opposed to the European size, is actually an advantage to Pettersson because of how good he is, because of his vision, his processing speed, his stick handling, of course, his good hands, and his long reach. For a small guy, well, he's a skinny guy, he's a tall guy though, he's got a long reach as well. So all those things, stick handling, his long reach, his vision, his processing speed. He says that relatively, he's actually further ahead and a better player than a lot of the players that play on the North American surface because of all those attributes, and that he wasn't worried at all about the transition from the big ice to the smaller ice. In fact, that the smaller ice will make him even a more impactful, a more impressive player, relatively speaking, which makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that's a really good point. Jason actually wrote into Canucks Army mailbag. They kind of answered it, and basically I think Jackson McDonald said the best players will be the best players no matter what ice surface that they're on. So fair enough, Jackson's comment was fair, but I really like my brother's point. And then we started talking about the draft, and I know I've talked about a lot in the last week about how that draft went. I even posted on Twitter about my video that I did back in June 2017 when we picked Pettersson 5th overall, when none of us knew anything about him, and that video has over 21,000 views on YouTube. I think a bunch of Swedish people in Sweden have been looking it up or ever since we drafted him. But regardless, I made the point that after Hischier, Patrick, Heiskanen, and Makar, that people were angling towards Glass, Middlestat, Velarde, maybe even Tippett, whoever it may be. And not a lot of people knew about Pettersson. I've had friends tell me that they're the official Canucks draft party. When Pettersson's name was read aloud by Benning, there was almost a stunned silence. No one knew anything about him. But my brother did, and at the time, he saw that some teams had him right where the Canucks picked him, around 5, 6, 7, 8 in that middle pack. No one had him in the top 3 or 4, but 5 through 8. And then a bunch of other teams had him like mid to late first round, 15 and below. And Jason, who studied a lot of the prospects, said he actually doesn't think that these scouts watched any video or knew anything about Pettersson. Because when you pull up the highlights from his 2016-2017 season in Sweden, how can you look at those highlights and say, no, this guy isn't a top 10 pick. This guy isn't even got to be a top 6 or top 8 pick. And obviously Benning did that. Jason tells me a funny story of how he heard an interview with Jim Benning about 10 minutes before it was our turn to pick, or maybe it was 10 minutes before the draft. And Benning was trying to be all deft and clever and steer people away from Pettersson. Oh yeah, we like Cody Glass, we like Casey Middlestat, we like Gabe Velarde, we got a lot of options. And he didn't mention Pettersson once. Well, we know that Benning is a very forthcoming, very humble and honest guy. So I think Benning was trying to lie or trying to deceive people, but people like my brother just saw right through it, and he kind of knew that that Pettersson was going to be our guy. So Jason looked up Pettersson highlights, and like he said, and like I just said, he's not sure what other scouts, how they missed this guy. And maybe, I know Brian Burke on TV over the weekend was saying, Calgary, they looked at him. They had a late, like a 15 or 16, 17 pick, and they said they looked at Pettersson, but they were worried about his size, and that was at the mid-first round. So obviously, the size hasn't been an issue because of how hard he works, how smart he is, his hands, his work ethic, all those things that we've talked about. So just a couple Pettersson reflections. Are you surprised at how well he's adjusted to the North American ice, or do you agree with my brother's theory that his game is very well suited to the North American ice? And admittedly, did you know anything about him when we drafted him back in June 2017? Okay, Canucks fans, just some things to think about on this Tuesday, the day after a long weekend. It's game day. I'm excited. Watch the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vancouver Canucks do battle tonight. Hurricanes, they've gotten off to a good start. They score a lot of goals. They also let a lot of goals in. So this should be, it sounds like the Canucks, so this should be a very exciting game tonight. Canucks fans, leave a comment below. I'd love to read, react, and reply. As always, what do you think of the lineup changes? Leipzig and Barchi swapping, Motte out, Schaller in, Del Zotto out, Hutton. What do you think of all those changes? Will it make a difference to the way the Canucks play tonight? And if you want to add another word about Pettersson, what did you think of when we drafted him? And be honest, be very honest. What did you think? Did you know anything about him when we drafted him? And how do you think he's done with his adjustment to the smaller ice surface? And are you surprised at all, given that he's playing his entire career in Sweden? That's it for me. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Give this video a like. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, enjoy the game. God bless, and go Canucks go.